Venezuelan Minister of Interior Diosdado Cabello reported the capture of a U.S. individual involved in terrorist plans against the country. In Lebanon, a new wave of explosions have been reported in numerous areas of the country, killing 9 people and leaving over 300 injured as radio receivers spontaneously detonated. And the government of China has announced sanctions against 9 U.S. military companies for selling weapons to Taiwan. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Venezuelan Minister of Interior Diosdado Cabello reported on Tuesday the capture of a U.S. individual involved in terrorist plans against the country. The announcement was made during an ordinary session of the National Assembly, where Cabello informed that the investigations on new terrorist plans against the country have also led to the seizure of a batch of around 400 rifles of exclusive manufacture and use by the United States military. The Bolivarian official also denied the allegations spread on foreign social media that the individuals of Spanish and U.S. nationalities captured were doing tourism in Venezuela. Cabello reaffirmed the nation's intelligence agencies have the confession and other conclusive evidence that show that the arrested belong to paramilitary groups and foreign forces. The Minister of Interior said the capture of the U.S. national was possible thanks to the information provided by the people. For his part, the President of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, informed that the Foreign Policy Commission of the Parliament presented a draft agreement in which they categorically reject the resolution promoted by the fascist right wing of Congress of Deputies of Spain.
I would like to remind you that the Commission of Foreign Affairs of the National Assembly, as was well expressed by Deputy Roy Daza, has presented an agreement regarding the requests made by the National Assembly on September 11. The main agreements for the people of Venezuela to know are as follows. First, to categorically reject the disastrous resolution promoted by the fascist right of the Congress of the Deputies of Spain, as well as to exhort them to respect the decision of the Venezuelan people, which sovereignly elected the citizen Nicolas Maduro Moro as President-elect of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
In Venezuela, the former presidential candidate of the far-right Edmundo González Urrutia addressed a letter to the President of the Venezuelan National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez Gomez, in September 7th, recognizing the ruling of the Supreme Court of Justice regarding the contentious electoral appeal filed by President Nicolas Maduro Moros. The letter states, as you are aware, on August 22, 2024, the electoral chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice issued a decision in response to the contentious electoral appeal filed by the President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro Moros, in view of the controversy arising from the electoral process of July 28, 2024. It continues, Mr. President of the National Assembly, I have always been and will continue to be willing to recognize and abide by the decisions adopted by the institutions of justice within the framework of the Constitution, including the aforementioned judgment of the Electoral Chamber, which, although I do not agree with, I abide by it as it is a resolution of the highest court of the Republic. González adds, convinced of the need to explore all possibilities of understanding in the supreme interest of peace in my country, I wish to convey my respect and recognition to the constitutional institutions represented in the 5 branches of government. Furthermore, he expresses, in this context, I have decided to leave Venezuela in the coming days in order to consolidate peace and political dialogue. Consequently, being at the headquarters of the Embassy of the Kingdom of Spain in Caracas, I have conveyed my intention to request political asylum before their government. The missive closes by informing, I hereby state for the record my commitment that my public activity outside Venezuela will be limited. I do not intend in any case to exercise any formal or informal representation of public authorities of the Venezuelan state. I will be absolutely respectful of the institution and interests of Venezuela, and I will always appeal to peace, dialogue, and national unity. Colombian President Gustavo Petro announced the end of peace talks with the National Liberation Army following an attack that left 2 young people dead and 27 wounded.
Las consecuencias de las acciones.
The consequences of the actions and the flow of history today bring us a dramatic event, repeated in recent years, an explosive latent ball that injures 27 young people and kills 2. According to the information I have, it was placed by the National Liberation Army, with whom we were talking about peace. And obviously, as happened that time in another place nearby, in the police school, when many police officers and signs who were studying there were killed. It is practically an action that closes a peace process with blood. And it is like an eternal becoming, to silence a part of the people and to continue in wars and killing each other again and again, as if that was our story.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. We will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Lebanon on Wednesday, a new wave of explosions have been reported in numerous areas of the country, killing 9 people and leaving over 300 injured as radio receivers spontaneously detonated. This way, the devices commonly known as walkie-talkies exploding, causing massive fires in cars, motorcycles, apartments, and stores throughout the country. One device reportedly burst into flame during a funeral procession for an individual and a child killed in the previous day attack. In this context, the Lebanese Health Ministry updated on the number of fatal victims and injured. The new attack comes after multiple pager explosions on Tuesday, orchestrated by Israel, killed at least 12 people and wounded some 2,800. This takes place after on Tuesday 12 people were killed and near 2,800 injured in the terrorist attack perpetrated by Israel, which caused simultaneous explosions of thousands of wireless pagers. During a press conference, Lebanon's Minister of Health, Firas Al-Abiad, stated that several of the wounded in critical condition sustained facial injuries. He also informed that the governments of Iran and Iraq sent medical aid to the country. Among the fatal victims of the attack was a minor who died after the explosion of one of these communication devices inside a home. In this context, authorities in Lebanon ordered the closure of 3 communication companies and declared this Wednesday, September 18th, as a day of national mourning.
The number of martyrs as of today is 12 martyrs, including 2 children, a girl, who was 8 years old, and a young man, who was 11 years old, in addition to several healthcare workers who were also among the martyrs who have fallen. I repeat, the number of martyrs so far is 12.
Iran sent medical teams to Lebanon to assist the victims of the terrorist attacks perpetrated by Israel. After the attack, the head of the Red Crescent Society of Iran, Pierre Hossein Kolivan, announced readiness to send emergency medical teams to Lebanon and provide relief, treatment, and transport services to the seriously injured. In that regard, with the actions and in coordination with the Lebanese Ministry of Health, on Wednesday, Iran proceeded to send relief teams and Red Crescent volunteers to Lebanon, which included 12 general practitioners and specialists and 12 nurses and paramedics. Also in this context, Lebanese Health Minister received at Beirut airport an aid shipment sent by Iraq in the wake of the deadly Israeli cyber attack. The official supervised the delivery of the first batch of aid provided by Iraq, containing 15 tons of medical supplies, as well as 20 doctors and health workers who will be in charge of supporting the Lebanese health services. Al-Abiad also stated that other aircraft with up to 70 tons of medical supplies and medicines are expected to arrive. Meanwhile, the Venezuelan government rejected Tuesday the cyber attack carried out by the Israeli regime against the Lebanese population in the south of the country, which left at least 12 civilians dead and injured around 2,800 people. The statement was issued through an official communique in which the Bolivarian government said that this type of practice, which generates violence, fatalities, and destruction, also causes panic and anxiety among the defenseless civilian population. The document goes on to stress that this attack, articulated through a sophisticated method of terror and intimidation to the people, adds to the despicable techniques used by hostile governments in the dangerous and increasing escalation of political and military tension in the Middle East. In another part of the text, Caracas warned that the silence of the international community in the face of the perverse and systematic violation of the principles contemplated in international humanitarian law only fits the pretensions of those who wish to unleash a dangerous escalation of violence of unimaginable consequences in the region. The Bolivarian government finally expressed its most sincere feelings of closeness to the Lebanese people and government for such an unfortunate event, while conveying a message of encouragement and solidarity to the families of the victims and injured. The United Nations General Assembly had an emergency special session on Tuesday, September 17th, to vote on a draft resolution submitted by Palestine demanding an end to the Israeli occupation. The text is based on the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice on Israel's decades of occupation practices against the Palestinians. The draft resolution calls for an end to the Israeli occupation within a period of 12 months. Moreover, the Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, stated that the solution is an independent and sovereign state of Palestine with the borders of 1967 and with East Jerusalem as its capital, living side by side in peace with Israel. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date with the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. The government of China has announced sanctions against 9 U.S. military companies for selling weapons to Taiwan. Precisely, the spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Lin Yan, denounced that Washington's actions seriously violate the One China principle and interfere in the internal affairs of the Asian nation, further damaging the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The sanctions include the freezing of real and personal property held by these U.S. companies in China, as well as a ban on Chinese entities and individuals from engaging in transactions and cooperative activities with the sanctioned companies. The measure comes after the United States announced the sale to Taiwan of aircraft spare parts and repair-related equipment for an amount of $228 million.
Weapon sales by the United States to China's Taiwan region have seriously violated the One China principle and the 3 China-U.S. joint communiques, especially the provisions of the 817 communique, seriously infringed upon China's sovereignty and security interests, damaged China-U.S. relations and peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, and sent a wrong signal to the separatist Taiwan Independence Forces. China strongly condemns and firmly opposes this, and has lodged solemn representations with the United States. China is taking resolute countermeasures and has announced that it will impose sanctions on 9 U.S. military-industrial enterprises. The United States continues to arm Taiwan, bolstering and encouraging Liqingda and DPP authorities in their stubborn promotion of Taiwan independence and challenging the One China principle.
The United Nations warned that more than 6 million children have been affected by floods and landslides triggered by Typhoon Yagi in Southeast Asia. The United Nations Children's Fund pointed out that the most vulnerable children and their families are facing devastating consequences, mainly in Myanmar and Vietnam. In this sense, they called to prioritize access to clean water, food, and education for children after the onslaught of the weather event. Floods and landslides caused by Typhoon Yagi left more than 290 dead in Vietnam and at least 226 in Myanmar. To a lesser extent, Thailand, Laos, the Philippines, and China also recorded casualties and hundreds of people affected. On Wednesday, Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, Celeste Saulo, highlighted new techs and innovation could help people adapt better to climate change.
But in terms of, just the amount of energy that it takes, and also the computational power, it really is significant. And although it can make weather forecasting more accessible by reducing some of those burdens, there is still a burden as far as energy and computational resources. And so it's not a perfect solution by any means, but I think it does hold a lot of potential. And with so much research being done in this field, I do think it can be a game changer in the way that we do forecast the weather moving forward and in making that more accessible.
The Brazilian government signed on Tuesday a cooperation agreement for the reconstruction of Rio Grande do Sul after the state was heavily impacted by floods in April and May 2024. The declaration was made by the state governor, Eduardo Leite, after his meeting with the President Lula da Silva. The agreement includes a commitment to create a fund of an estimated equivalent to $1.2 billion that will be used for the construction of dams and flood protection systems, especially in the metropolitan region of Porto Alegre. The signing of the agreement includes the establishment of a council with members from the federal and state governments to oversee the public works needed to rebuild cities and infrastructure damaged by unprecedented flooding in early May. Meanwhile, in Argentina, two retirees request to declare unconstitutional Milei's veto to the law of pension mobility. Two retirees filed a lawsuit requesting the declaration of unconstitutionality of Javier Milei's veto that prevented, by means of a decree, the enactment of the law on pension mobility. The retirees are represented by the constitutional lawyer Andrés Gil Dominguez and the defender of the early Eugenio Semino. They claim that the grounds for Javier Milei's veto are unreasonable, that it's based on false data, and it aggravates the situation of a vulnerable and historically disadvantaged group, especially protected by the Argentine Constitution and by international instruments on human rights. The exhibition The World According to Mafalda is being held in Venezuela in honor of the 60th anniversary of the character created by the Argentine writer Joaquín Lavado, known as Kino, who narrated the contradictions of our societies, but also the hope for a more humane and peaceful world, all through a 6-year-old girl who does not like soup. Our colleague Leonardo Urrieta gives us more details.
This exhibition, which has toured several Latin American and European countries, was brought by the Bolivarian government of Venezuela and will be open to the public until October 16th.
This exhibition was born in 2007 at the Children's Museum in Barrilete, Córdoba, Argentina, and has been touring Latin America and part of Europe for about 17 years. The magnificent Mafalda, a 6-year-old girl who invites us to reflect, to question ourselves, to inquire and ask questions that sometimes are uncomfortable for adults, and that invites us to recreate ourselves in all its stages.
It has been having for 60 years an audience not only in Venezuela but also in the whole world. This allows us to reflect on the fact that everyone leaves happy. In some way we go back to a childhood memory, to the adults, to the elderly. The old people leave happy. To a journalist, it is very interesting because there is a lot of reading.
Mafalda, a sus 6 años de edad, pregonaba en sus
Mafalda, at the age of 6, proclaimed in her chapters the need to move forward to a new world, without wars, where humanity is fundamental to build a new society without selfishness.
Mafalda siempre fue un personaje, al igual que Condorito en su momento, que nos hizo pensar mucho.
Mafalda was always a character, just like Condorito in his time, that made us think a lot. He made us think beyond the toys, but about the reason of life, to face the world that was not the one we wanted.
This is a very suitable exhibition for parents with their children, especially if they are young and can explain perfectly many of the situations raised by Mafalda.
El público venezolano asistente a la exposición.
The Venezuelan public attending the exhibition remembers the rebel Mafalda, even though 60 years have passed since it first broadcast, as it is still more valid than ever, in a world ever more convulsed by the West.
I love to see an exhibition of Mafalda. Besides, I think it is very well done. It is very beautiful, and well, we can confirm that it is still valid as if it had just come out.
The Mafalda that we have is really a very significant character in our lives. And when we approach an event like this, we have not only to be grateful that they have been willing to make available to each one of us here in the city of Caracas this sample of a character that is an icon and reference of a generation.
Mafalda, que se emitió desde el 29 de septiembre.
Mafalda, which was issued from September 29, 1964 until June 25, 1973, shows a comic strip with messages of peace and a new humanity from the hand of its creator Kino, a cartoonist from Argentina. Today in Argentina submerged in a deep crisis due to the application of the ultra-neoliberal model of Milei's government. The question that Mafalda lovers ask themselves is the following. What would these characters say about what is happening in today's Argentina?
Jesús Romero y Leonardo Urrieta, TeleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
And this we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.